Once again, this is the DKE TV special edition of the show, the Authors Roundtable, and we are talking to four talented, beautiful, amazing, strong women, and we are touching on a series of subjects pertaining to the books that we have here. And speaking of the books, I know you all attract a lot of different people who have been in abused relationships, whether it's both domestic or even verbal for that matter, and sexual. How often do you all come across people who read your book that have been through the same situations that you all been in? What kind of testimonies do they share with you when they talk to you in person or over the phone or email? Like, what are some of the testimonies that you all get?
Well, I like the story of Sharon in my book. She was an abused young child who grew up. First of all, it's true. It's a true story. All the stories in my book are true, even though I changed the names and I don't reveal the identity of the person. But Sharon grew up being molested by her father. And then from being molested by her father, she was molested by her older brothers as well. And it was just a sad situation, so she turned to homosexuality, and even though it was a religious family, the church rejected her for being homosexual, even though they supported the abuse. And so it motivated me to write about it, to expose it, because, it was just ridiculous. They told her to get over it. She was told to get over the abuse, and she grew up with anxiety and all types of mental and emotional issues from that abuse, and then she went on to have abusive relationships and being abused as an adult woman by her lovers or whoever she was involved with. And most of my people will come up like at book signings, and they'll say, I was abused as a child, and I really like that you're talking about it. Or I get emails and even some phone calls for prayer. People, they want to be healed from it, and they just sometimes don't know how to get out of it. And they sometimes don't need advice as much as they need to just get it out.
That's good.
What about you all? Like, do you all get? What about you all? Do you all get like different testimonies from people that have been through the same experience that you all have been? Like, what are some of the testimonies that your readers share with you?
I get so many because I spend a lot of time on the road, and speaking is what I do primarily. So, yes, I get a lot of testimonies, letters, emails, phone calls. I've received some suicidal phone calls from some people that were just on the edge. But I get so many testimonies, and they vary. One that I got just this week was from a young lady who said, my therapist told me to call you. I had to call you. Well, she emailed me, and I said that she wanted to call me, but she needed to email me to say that she understood what happened to her now and what type of person and she had become, and the decisions that it made her, the abuse caused her to do and to make. And this particular young lady felt that way because in my book I interview one of my good friends whose father made her have oral sex with him for 7 years and swallow his semen. And this happened to this young lady who emailed me this week. And she said, I felt that I was the only person in the world that could possibly happen to. And so reading someone else's story and reading about where my friend is at in her life now, just a wonderful woman, very successful, it really helps her to get over that. But I also received a story I have to share. A mother, and we touched on this earlier about people who are abused oftentimes become the abusers, sometimes as children. We call it playing house and playing doctor and hide and seek. But sometimes when you're abused, you end up abusing and molesting other children. This mother wrote me a letter and said that she was going to molest her own children. She had pretty much made the decision in her mind that she was going to molest her sons until she heard me on the radio and she bought a copy of my book. Now that's to the glory of God. See, you break that cycle in the family. When someone writes you a story and shares that type of information like that, if it's just that one person in the world, it is well.
That's
Wow.
just blowing my mind right there.
And that's the key thing that I wanted to touch on too is I know for myself, different things that you go through, you always think that you are the only
Yes.
one.
The only one.
That's right.
And so that's why it's so good to talk about these issues, because when they're reading all of our books and they see, and I know for myself, even because I'm a very private person, don't want to put my business out there, so it was hard for me to write my book. But once it was out there, I was really nervous. And you think, gosh, I'm the only person, what are people going to think? And then you have all these people coming to you. This happened to me, and this happened to me, and because I read this, it made me do something different. And so it's just a blessing that when you write something and everything that you go through, you count it all joy, because you know it's not for yourself. It's for other people and to heal other people.
Right,
That's right.
absolutely. And I just want to reiterate what she was saying with my life. My book is totally about me. And I've had enormous phone calls, enormous emails, because I almost just about touched on every problem that a black woman could go through just about. It's just like I had just had so many issues. But at the end of the day, what I realized is that once you admit to yourself that there is an issue, you don't have a problem in it. Once you can lie to anybody else, but you can't lie to yourself.
That's right.
Once I admitted to myself that this is a problem within me, my choices in men was backwards because of what? Remember when I said earlier about a lot of decisions that were made because of the way that people was raised in their environment? I looked at my life and I said, okay, why am I choosing the guys that I know, quote unquote, are not good for me? Why do I keep running to them? Because in my home life was not stable. I was raised by my grandparents. Like I said, I never knew who my father was. My mother was a drug addict. And it was like they didn't show me that love. Like everything was hush, hush, quiet, quiet. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about the birds and the bees, you know. So what I do, I go to the streets because I felt like the first guy that said, Shakita, you beautiful, I went running. But see, if I had that father in my household that said, baby, you're beautiful, don't worry about, you know, what anybody say, you're beautiful to me, then I think it could have made a difference in my life. But I was looking for love. So where did I go? I go to the streets. For the first guy, it didn't matter what he did for a living. I didn't care. It was like he showed me love. And that was the downfall. So you see a pattern here. I kept going to the wrong people because they were showing me love.
Right.
So, you know, like what you were saying earlier, I mean, it's amazing, you know, like you were saying about getting over, breaking the cycle and,
Right.
and learning from your mistakes and going back to where it started. It's very important.
Right. And when you were talking about yourself, I said, wow, you are just like me. We have so much in common because I grew up, my mother was on drugs as well. I was raised by my grandparents. My father wasn't in the household. And people will make you feel like you are crazy because you have this past, and it's like, do you not understand that sometimes the best anointed, most productive people in the world have been born out of adversity? Look at Moses, look at David. I mean, the list goes on and on if you want to take it biblical, which I base life biblically, you know. But so I understand the cycle, and that's what the problem was in my marriage too. My ex-husband would always be like, your mom's a drug addict and she was homosexual. So it's like, well, you don't want to have sex with me tonight. It's because you're gay like your mom. And so it's like, I would be like, well, God, I don't want to share my testimony. I felt like you. But I say, you know what the Bible says, that we're overcome by the words of our testimony and the blood of the Lamb. And it's not just for us, it's for somebody else. Because sometimes he will allow us to go through things so that other people could come out too. And they can hear the testimony and they could be delivered and set free and feel like they're not the only ones. Because that's what the enemy wants to do, is make you feel like you're the only one. He wants to isolate you, get you quiet and hush up. And then you before you know it, you could become suicidal, holding it all in.
Right,
Thinking you're
absolutely.
weird and crazy.
Wow, this is so deep. This is so deep.